In this episode, I'm going to replace the ring gear on this flywheel and file the mating surfaces between the exhaust manifolds and the heads, and may clean up the distributor a little bit. But the goal is, by the end of this episode, to have the engine sat back in the truck and then push the truck inside to get everything hooked back up and stuff like that and get the truck running. So I'll bring you in here and show you why I'm replacing this ring gear. There's a couple chip teeth right there. They're all a little bit chipped up. A little bit of chips there. Oh, missing one. Missing half one. Bunch of chips. Whole bunch of chips. Lots and lots of chips. Yep, the whole thing. Oh, missing a pretty good chunk of one there. Yeah, so needless to say, the ring gear needs replaced. If flywheels for this FE weren't so expensive, I would just buy a new flywheel and it would have a new ring gear on it. But golly, these flywheels for these things are expensive, and mine is not in bad shape. And according to Zach, with the old school 3-finger clutch like that, they're stout enough and forgiving enough that I don't really, it's not pressing to replace the flywheel. Okay, so I'm going to hit it with the propane torch and a big hammer, and then if the old ring gear comes off, then I'm going to put the new one in the oven like a pizza and let it get warm and expand a little bit, and then it should just drop right on there. Hopefully. It may not work like I want it to. Who knows? I kind of want to hit it a couple times and see what it does. Wow. That's super cool. It's working, but I don't want to force it, so I'm going to give it a little bit more heat. I don't know why I just took my gloves off. You'll notice I've got the flywheel sitting on a couple blocks of wood that are small enough in diameter that the ring gear will fall down around them. The small blocks of wood is what I used. Basically, if you're doing this at home and you're watching this as a video to learn how to do it, which I don't know if this is the place to be, but if you are, use whatever you got as long as it's small enough that that ring gear can fall off around whatever the flywheel is sitting on. If a guy had something he could put in his vise that would swivel forever, like a Lazy Susan type situation, that would be ideal for heating up this ring gear. But poor people got poor ways, so this will work just fine. Okay, I'm pretty excited. I think this is it. Are you still with me? Yeah, you're still there. That was very loud. So, there you have it. That is an FE Ford ring gear removed from a flywheel. So, now I'm going to put the new ring gear in the oven and let it bake for a while. Huh, how about that? Turns out, when you're trying to get good lighting on what you're doing, and you're using a tripod to record off of, if it's got that cross thingy in between all three of the legs, you can just hang the trouble light right on that thing. I'm pretty mind blown at the moment. So, in the name of productivity, I'm going to run the big file over these surfaces while I've got that ring gear in the oven. So my plan, I don't know if it's necessary or maybe it's way more important than I think, but my plan is to be as consistent as possible. So I guess what I'm going to do is start at the back and go lay the flat file across two of them and go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. Huh. Well, the counting seems silly. So maybe I'll just kind of go a little bit at a time across two at a time and see how it feels. I don't know. And see how it looks. going to go. So now I've got a good idea, and I'll probably time lapse the rest of that unless I'm just going to set that file on the floor, evidently. I'm going to time lapse the rest of this unless I just happen to encounter something that I need to tell you guys about. But the oven timer's going off, so time to put the new ring gear on. Yep, it's definitely hot. I'm going to run a wire brush around the surface that the ring gear sits on very quickly. I'm sure if a shop were doing something like this, they would do it either better or differently or cleaner or more efficiently, but I'll tell you what, this will probably work just fine, and if it doesn't, then consider it a hard lesson learned, I suppose. So it's my understanding that this has no particular way that it needs to go on, but I'm going to check for any numbers first. Yep, there's no numbers on it, so okay. It's very hot, especially when you have holes in your gloves. I'm going to see if I can find a long board. Like I've stated before, it's probably not the perfect way to do this, but it'll probably work. Oh, that was not ideal. Okay. It's going on a little crooked, but that's okay. I'm going to push my earplugs in a little bit further. Okay, so I'm going to try it on the concrete stoop here in my shop because I think maybe part of the issue is my uneven workbench. Even if it's not, this is probably a better idea anyway. I don't know. We'll see. Okay, so the flywheel has been in the freezer for half an hour, and the ring gear has been in the oven for half an hour at 400 degrees. So hopefully this works. it's very, very, very cold.
Good.
I think I just got instant frostbite on
That's fine.
my fingertips. Okay. I was ill prepared.
We should. I'm gonna I lit this ahead of time because you're gonna drop it on there. We'll start heating it and start beating it because it should be plenty warm, and it's just keeping it warm to.
Yeah, it cooled off fast. I may not even exit those ice strips. Nope, not doing it.
That's all cooled off. I'm gonna throw that back in the oven, let it warm up again. Well, I think. Quit wasting propane there. How many vice grips do you own?
Not enough.
Okay.
That's what I found out yesterday is that the amount that I have is not enough to do what needs done.
I've never had this much trouble with one. Maybe I've just been lucky, who knows. Now while that's heating up, we'll... Oh yeah, we haven't... Are you still baking that bad boy?
Yeah.
Nice.
So, Zach is finishing putting the distributor back together because I was too scared to do it. And I basically just avoided it as long as I possibly could until Zach came back and saw that it wasn't put back together. And that's how that goes. We've got the frozen flywheel here, and the ring gear is back in the oven as hot as my oven will physically go because it still doesn't want to go on. So that's great. Last thing you guys probably saw was me filing this. Zach did a little bit more filing on it. It's as good as it's going to get. Everything really should be surfaced by a machine shop, but that's not going to happen until in the future whenever I go through the engine. So that's the update for now. So that's the new hardware installed. We decided to put studs back in instead of going with bolts so that in the future it's easier to remove the manifolds and so we can get even pressure. And these are what
they go on. Nope. They only go on one way.
Okay.
And it's not that way.
Oh.
Look at the other side.
Oh, that looks much nicer.
Yeah.
So what we're calling these is heat shields, right?
I believe that's what they're officially referred to as.
And the hope is that they will kind of act like gaskets.
Right, so...
But be better than gaskets, because the old ones obviously blew out.
From reading online, guys have had more luck using these only, and no gaskets on these motors. Because these motors basically just blow out gaskets.
Yeah.
And some things may be kind of bent here, so we're having fun getting it lined up. Okay.
Almost makes a guy feel bad about putting these shiny new parts on this crusty engine without doing more, but
No, not at all.
That'll come with time.
Yeah.
You have a few words you want to say while you're doing that about kind of how it went? Just that
No.
you kind of had to just put it on a little bit at a time with some of the studs out
because of the misalignment and a few issues here.
Right.
So hopefully the viewers are familiar with the 2 nuts on a stud trick to put it in without turning it up.
Yep.
That's what I'm employing here. With relative success at this point. I'm not sure on some of these how well everything's going to work.
Yeah, it seems like they don't want to align great, but...
Well, you know, old manifolds, old motor, crooked holes.
And now the heat shield to contend with as well.
Yeah, so I'm going to put this heat shield in the way. And
You want the soft face hammer?
no, because actually that heat shield really shouldn't be in the way. Looking at it. It's actually just it is an alignment issue. I can't get started in the hole because of the rest of it there. That side should go a little better, honestly.
Yeah, these are all nice and straight.
I'm hoping the more of these I get in, the straighter it wants to run.
So the secret was loads and loads more heat. 525 degrees in the oven for what's that been? 45 minutes or an hour?
Well, something like that. But yeah,
Just
I'm not going to say it dropped on, but that's
it practically just dropped on compared to the hours of beating that I did on it yesterday.
Thing to make sure you get it seated against the ridge the whole way.
Yep.
See, I'm not quite seated there. There's it right there now. Looks pretty good.
Freak yeah!
That's how it's supposed to go. It's supposed to happen. Yeah.
Yeah, that's exciting because I was beginning to start entertaining the idea of just buying a new flywheel. If it got that bad. Because I beat on it for 2 hours yesterday.
Did you put that dink in it, or is that already there?
So, for all these years, that coil was just bolted to
One of the intake manifold bolts.
that bolt. Yeah. So, now we know why. Because that was more than stripped out, right? It was pretty much blown out.
Yeah, the bolt just kind of fell out when I went to investigate it.
So, Zach you're going to helicoil that one? Or just tap it?
No, I'm helicoiling it.
Okay. And then...
And someday I'm going to buy you a set of tap sockets going under here.
Yeah. What are you looking for?
All the little tinier inches. Like we did last time.
We used a 7mm, right?
Did we?
So down one, left side. I think that's what we ended up doing.
It didn't make it back.
Oh, it's on the bench.
Is it?
Yeah. So, we're just going to not talk about that hole getting stripped out because we just don't need to talk about it, right?
Right.
So that hole is now helicoiled. That hole was helicoiled, and now the coil is mounted back on here, and I see Zach took it upon himself to put the firing order right there. Nice and convenient. And Zach is hooking up and plumbing all the spark plug wires and getting them all prettied up and in their
Not that pretty, but okay.
holder things. Kind of pretty. Anyway, so that's the update.
Don't forget the dust shield.
What's the comparison between numbers on how many times you have forgotten and how many times you're willing to admit you've forgotten?
50-50.
God, it's always the worst.
Right?
Man, it's the worst feeling ever when you realize it's not there.
And I gotta take that back apart.
Every single thing apart.
Yeah. I forgot FE's don't have the second dolphin. I'm gonna set the torque wrench up for 85.
Okay. Where did you put it? There it is. Sucker?
No. Puppy dog.
No.
He just wants to help.
He wants you to H.R.D.S his TOI.
Well, that too.
85?
80, 85. The spec was 75 to 85.
Compromise at 80.
80 is fine. It's within spec. That's the whole point of having a spec.
Should be 80.
Okay. I'm not the man I used to be. I used to be able to hold that. Where's the breaker bar in the socket I had set up for the dampener?
Do you still need that specific?
Yep. Did you put it away, did you? It's 15/16. Couldn't get the big one since you're holding it, huh?
Yeah. Whereas you have muscles, I have leverage.
Uh-huh. Where does this need to be?
For what?
Well, the truck's coming in, isn't it?
Yeah, closest to the motorcycle.
Alright, without sticking your head under the thing, you know.
Yeah.
Tractor safety. Hi, puppy dog.
Tucker, no.
Are you sure
you don't want to throw it?
Are you sure?
You seem like maybe you do. I think you should just have it.
I think you should.
I'm already confused about which way it's gonna try to go. Okay. This is one reason I love old junk, is because new stuff, there's weird reasons why you can't get a socket on the crank pulley to do stuff like this. It's really frustrating. Or they're just like small garbage quality hardware, so you end up spinning it more than holding it.
Well, the only reason this works is because that crank bolt's so freaking big.
Yeah.
You know?
I tried this on a Ranger, and we ended up having to zip tie the clutch basket to the ears on the something, on like the exhaust manifold flanges.
Yeah, something.
It was pretty hilarious.
I used to just be able to one hand that crank on it, but not anymore. I got married. Now these, the torque spec on these is 20, right? 20 is the max. There's like 15 to 20. And like I said, I'll just eyeball for the center on the clutch plate.
Yeah, I could find something to put in there if you want.
Nah, I'm getting...
gonna... Did we end up stop threading any of this?
Nope.
Huh.
It worked when it was together, didn't it?
Well, okay. You want me to start one while you're holding it, because it's a lot to do all at once?
I wouldn't argue with it.
Where are we?
Yeah, you can still see it in the...
Well, the last thing you guys saw was us out in the driveway trying to get the engine to find its happy place. I was in the tractor moving the engine around any that I could, and Zach was under the truck and in the truck and on top of the truck trying to wrestle the engine around. The camera battery died, and needless to say, the engine kind of plopped into its place, and we pushed the truck inside so that everything else can be done in the warmth of my garage. So everything else is pretty much the reverse of whenever you guys saw Brandon and I take everything apart. So I'm not going to bore you guys with everything as far as like hooking the engine back up. But this is going to be the end of this video. And first thing in the new video, we're going to fire this thing off and take it for a drive, I guess. Hopefully everything goes back together like it should and works right. Just a quick recap. We did exhaust manifold heat shields, replaced the exhaust manifold bolts with studs, filed the mating surfaces. Zach went through the entire distributor and cleaned and polished everything and made sure that the distributor now will actually do distributor type things. We helicoiled half a dozen different holes that needed it. And what else did we do? Replaced the motor mounts, because the motor mounts were basically just non-existent. Whenever we lifted the engine up out of the truck, the motor mounts just fell in my driveway, which is not really how they're supposed to work. So now it's got new motor mounts and all of that other stuff that I listed. And Zach put a lot of time into getting the spark plug wires like he wanted them. So I'm excited. I drove this truck very little before we tore into it, but I never was around this truck whenever the engine didn't flop all over the place and it had a really, really, really bad exhaust manifold leak. So it's going to be pretty different, and I'm excited. So thanks for watching. Make sure to stay tuned for whenever we get this thing fired up and take it for a drive.